In the evening of launching Tāhere Tiki Tiki Tuarua, and after long history serving its people, Te Ariki Nui announced the gifting of Te Winika to the people of Hamilton, as a gesture of goodwill between Māori and Pākehā. Te Winika had spent a great deal of time in dry dock and had been resealed with tin, reinforced cement and tar to remain seaworthy. Early in July 1973, Te Winika, then 135 years old, was paddled on the Waikato for the last time. Escorted by Tāhere Tiki Tiki Tuarua, it was paddled to Hamilton and gifted to the Hamilton Art and History Museum in a moving ceremony. In mid-1995, a newly appointed curator of anthropology, Ngā Hui a Te Awe Kōtuku, initiated discussions with the Waikato people concerning Te Winika, and it was decided to carry out a complete restoration. The subtlety of Te Winika's carvings had been obscured over the years by layers of red enamel paint, and in the years of disuse, in dry dock and then on display at the museum, some rot had set in. Men from the Tūranga Waiwai canoe maintenance team took Te Winika apart. There were 66 pieces, and then the restoration workers began their 10-month task. The workers, all mokopuna of the original canoe makers, were subsidised by the Department of Labour on a PEP scheme. All had knowledge of traditional arts, such as weaving and carving. Most of them were women, and before work could start on the Waka tauaa, the tapu had to be lifted. The job was a major one, with natural materials having to be gathered and prepared, surfaces cleaned, the carvings carefully restored, and the waka reassembled by the Tūranga Waiwai maintenance team in the final month. Now, in the river gallery of the new premises in Grantham Street, the taonga Te Winika is a vessel of education, beauty and inspiration to all who see it. Early in 1989, the decision was made to carry out a major restoration project on Tūmanako, Te Rangatahi and Tāhere Tiki Tiki Tuarua. Funded by the 1990 Commission, the waka was to be made river and seaworthy and would attend the 1990 Waitangi celebrations. Tūmanako had small areas of rot in the homey kokomo joins which were removed. The fitting of the rauawa to the hull was adjusted to help eliminate leakage. Dan Solomon and Leo Muru were the carvers, Sani Tahapehi the carpenter, John Jimmy Joseph did the adze work, and Wee Karaka Henare did the lashing. They were assisted by a versatile team of workers. 6 months of work were involved, the restorers working Saturdays and Sundays and 3 evenings a week after their regular jobs. Prior to that, the 3 canoes used annually for the Tūranga Waiwai Regatta and on important occasions had been repaired piecemeal when necessary, through a lack of funds to carry out major work. Te Rangatahi in particular needed a lot of attention. There were extensive areas of rot and a complete new front hull section was made and fitted. In addition, 6 inches of both sides of the centre hull were removed and strips of laminated tauaa glued on to replace the lost wood. The aft hull section was removed and a large outer piece which had been glued on to replace a rotten section in 1971 was removed and replaced by laminated tauaa. Rotten areas on the rauawa were replaced and recarved. This was necessary on all the waka. Tāhere Tiki Tiki's fore and aft hull sections had developed rot through the water, leaking into the inner hull through knots in the wood. These were removed and replaced. The rauawa and hull were realigned and the tauihu and taurapa sealed to stop water entry. Meanwhile, local women were engaged in the enormous task of making the rāpaki and other garments that would be used by the 300 kaihoi at the Waitangi celebrations. This took 12 months. Many other things had to be done as well. Accommodation and food organised, transport booked, and leave from work organised for the kaihoi. The kaihoi trained for several months before Waitangi Day, living on Tūranga Waiwai Marae at weekends and observing strict discipline. As well as paddling, they learned haka, waiata and tribal traditions. The convoy that left Ngārua Wāhia for Waitangi on January 31st, 1990 was an enormous one. The 3 Waka tauā taken up on transporters were accompanied by a large number of supporters as well as the kaihoi. In addition, there were 3 other tainui Waka tauā and their crews and supporters. More than 500 of the people travelled up in cars and vans, and the others went in 25 buses that were chartered. For the supporters as well as the kaihoi, the Waitangi celebrations were a powerful experience. There was an atmosphere of kotahitanga and cooperation, of pride and self-esteem. The waka was guarded when not in use, and in the early hours of the morning, kaihoi could be seen sleeping and sitting by their waka.